Have you ever thought about living in a place where winter never lets up? Where the thermometer always seems stuck in the negative, and leaving the house is almost a survival challenge? Well, in many corners of the planet, this is the routine. While in many countries the cold is just a season, in others it dictates the rhythm of life. These are places where snow is not a tourist attraction, but part of everyday life, where architecture, food, people's moods, and even the way they work have to adapt. And that's exactly what we're going to talk about today. So get comfortable, because this trip is going to be a long one. Today on Bello Mundo, we're going to visit frozen deserts, cities that look like they're from another planet, and routines that defy the logic of those who live mainly in tropical countries. Number 10. Denmark. The first stop on our trip is Denmark, land of the Vikings, colorful houses in Copenhagen, bicycles crisscrossing the city, and even the idea that it is a cozy place. And indeed it is. But behind this Nordic charm lies a relentless cold. The country's average annual temperature is around 50 degrees Fahrenheit, which would be enough to put any Brazilian on coat alert. But this average is a little misleading, because in the middle of the Danish winter, especially in January and February, the thermometer easily drops to -10 degrees. And if you go further north of Jutland, near the border with the North Sea, the cold gets even worse. Historically, the lowest temperature ever recorded in Denmark was -78 degrees Fahrenheit in 1982 in the town of Hørsted. And we're not even talking about Greenland, which belongs to the Danish kingdom and is much colder. This is mainland Denmark. To cope with the cold, first, they rely on architecture. Well-insulated houses, central heating, and double-glazed windows are part of the basics. Then comes culture, the famous concept of hygge, which is the idea of creating cozy environments with soft lighting, candles, blankets on the sofa, and good company. It's a way to get around not only the ice, but also the short days, since in winter the sun rises late and sets too early. Number 9. Kazakhstan. When we in the West hear about countries ending in istan, we immediately think of deserts, heat, and sand as far as the eye can see. But Kazakhstan, the largest country in Central Asia, radically breaks this expectation, because, in fact, it is one of the coldest places on the planet. The average annual temperature there is around 46 degrees Fahrenheit. It seems bearable, but that's just the average. What's really impressive are the extremes. In winter, it's not uncommon for the thermometer to plummet to -20 degrees, especially in regions such as Astana, the planned capital in the heart of the country, and in the north, near Siberia. The official record low is -44 degrees. That is precisely why cities are designed to withstand biting winds and endless snowstorms. Astana, for example, was once considered one of the coldest capitals in the world, with streets where the wind seems to penetrate even the thickest clothing. The local cuisine also reflects this need to withstand the climate. Dishes rich in meat, dairy products, and pasta help maintain energy levels. Hot tea is a constant presence, and in the countryside you can still see the traditional yurts, tents inherited from nomadic ancestors, designed to retain heat in the middle of the frozen steppes. Number 8. Estonia. Between Russia and the Baltic Sea lies a small country that seems to have been carved out for the cold, Estonia. With just over 1 million inhabitants, this place has one of the lowest annual averages in Europe, around 44 degrees Fahrenheit. Winter there is long, dark, and cold. It is not uncommon for the temperature to drop below -20 degrees, especially in areas further away from Tallinn, the capital. The historical record was almost minus 40 degrees, recorded in 1940 in the Jelgava region. For a small country, this figure is enough to make it stand out in any ranking of extreme cold. But it's not just the thermometer that matters. For several months, sunlight is scarce. Days can have less than 6 hours of daylight. This completely changes people's routines. Many Estonians suffer from seasonal depression, a drop in energy and mood caused by the lack of natural light. It is no coincidence that one of the secret weapons against winter there is the sauna, a tradition inherited from their Finnish neighbors that serves as a warm refuge in the middle of the ice. The geography also contributes to this feeling of isolation. More than half of the country is covered by forests, and the frozen lakes in winter transform the landscape into a fairy tale setting. But living in this setting requires discipline. Houses with robust central heating, reinforced thermal clothing, and of course, lots of hot tea to endure the endless nights. Number 7. Sweden. Sweden is famous for its quality of life, high education standards, and even its minimalist design that has conquered the world. But behind this modern and organized image lies an uninviting climate. Cold, very cold. The average annual temperature is just over 39 degrees Fahrenheit, enough to place the country among the coldest on the planet. The Swedish winter is harsh, especially in the north, above the Arctic Circle. In this region, cities such as Kiruna easily reach temperatures of minus 35 degrees. The country's historical record was minus 48 degrees, recorded in Vuogatjolme in 1966. And it's not just the cold that is impressive. During part of the winter, the sun simply does not appear. There are weeks of almost total darkness known as the polar night. This absence of light has direct consequences for mental health. Many Swedes experience seasonal depression, a drop in energy and mood linked to the lack of sunlight. For this reason, vitamin D supplements and special lamps that simulate natural light are common there. Number 6. Finland. If there is one country that seems to have been shaped by the cold, it is Finland. With an average annual temperature of just over 37 degrees Fahrenheit, it is always among the coldest places in Europe. But the average hides even harsher extremes. In the north, in Lapland, winter easily brings the thermometer down to minus 40 degrees. The official record was 48 degrees below zero in Kittilä in 1999. And it's not just the cold. As in Sweden, here too, the sun disappears for months. In cities such as Rovaniemi and Utsjoki, the phenomenon of the polar night leaves residents immersed in darkness for weeks on end. Without natural light, the body and mind suffer. It is no wonder that Finland is among the countries that most study and combat seasonal depression. Vitamin D consumption is routine, and many resort to artificial light therapy to cope with winter. On the other hand, this same extreme climate has helped to create traditions that have become the country's trademark. The sauna, for example, is not just leisure, it is a necessity. With more than 2 million saunas for 5 million inhabitants, it is a fundamental part of everyday life. It is there that the body is warmed, the mind is relaxed, and an ancient cultural connection is maintained. Number 5. Norway. Norway is remembered for its imposing fjords, the northern lights, and its high standard of living. But it is also one of the coldest countries on the planet, with an annual average temperature of just over 37 degrees Fahrenheit. This figure alone puts the country in the ranking, but of course it is in winter that the true severity of the climate is revealed. In northern regions such as Tromsø or Svalbard, thermometers easily plummet to 30 or 40 degrees below zero. The historical record, recorded in Karasjok, reached 48 degrees below zero in 1986. This scenario requires adaptations. Norwegian architecture focuses on well-insulated houses and efficient heating systems. Culture has also molded itself to the climate. Activities such as cross-country skiing, ice fishing, and long walks in the snow are part of the national identity. Even the consumption of fatty fish, such as salmon, helps provide extra energy against the intense cold. But winter does not only bring challenges, it creates unique opportunities. Tromsø, for example, has become one of the best places in the world to observe the northern lights, attracting tourists who brave the extreme cold in search of this natural spectacle. At the same time, the prolonged darkness is offset by summer, when the midnight sun illuminates the country without rest. Number 4. Mongolia. Leaving the Norwegian cold behind, we now arrive in Mongolia, a country of continental dimensions dominated by endless steppes, deserts such as the Gobi, and mountain ranges that seem to go on forever. However, despite all this vastness, it is also one of the coldest places on the planet. The annual average is around 2 degrees 35 Fahrenheit, but winter makes that number seem modest. Cities such as Ulaanbaatar, the capital, are among the coldest in the world. Located at an altitude of over 4,000 feet, surrounded by mountains, the city faces temperatures that drop to -40 degrees every year. In 2010, for example, the country recorded lows below -50 degrees in some northern regions. This extreme cold has a direct impact on the lives of Mongolians. In the countryside, the population still maintains a nomadic lifestyle, living in tents called gers. These circular structures are made of felt and wood, designed to retain heat and withstand the biting wind of the steppes. Even so, during the harshest winters, known as dzud, millions of animals end up dying, which compromises the livelihoods of families. In Ulaanbaatar, adaptation takes a different form. The use of coal for heating is common, but this has also brought a problem. The city was once considered one of the most polluted capitals in the world during winter, when coal smoke mixes with the cold air. Number 3. Iceland. Iceland seems straight out of an epic tale, a land of volcanoes, glaciers, frozen fjords, and landscapes that blend fire and ice in a unique way. Despite all this dramatic beauty, living here means facing one of the harshest climates on the planet. The annual average is just over 33 degrees Fahrenheit, but what really weighs on people is the feeling of isolation. In winter, temperatures easily drop to -20 degrees in many regions. Add to that the darkness. In December, in the capital Reykjavik, the sun barely appears for 4 hours a day, and in the north of the island, night can last for weeks, creating an atmosphere that directly affects the mood and mental health of the population. And how do Icelanders deal with this? With resilience and creativity. Houses are heated with geothermal energy, taking advantage of the heat coming from the depths of the earth. The population relies on community traditions, cultural gatherings, and of course hot outdoor baths, even with snow falling around them. This mixture of natural heat and ice has become a symbol of the country. The cold also shapes the economy. Fishing, the main activity for centuries, was only possible thanks to the ability to navigate and work in frozen seas. Today, winter tourism attracts people from all over the world, whether to see the northern lights or to explore ice caves and snow-covered volcanoes. In Iceland, cold and isolation are not barriers, they are part of the charm. Number 2. Russia. If there is one country that is practically synonymous with cold, it is Russia. With its immense territory spanning 11 time zones, it has an average annual temperature of -35 degrees Fahrenheit. But this average hides the extremes that have made Russia a global benchmark for harsh winters. In Siberia, for example, the cold defies any notion of human limits. The city of Oymyakon, known as the Pole of Cold, recorded a temperature of -57 degrees in 1933, still considered one of the lowest temperatures ever experienced by a permanently inhabited community. Other cities, such as Yakutsk, experience months of temperatures below -86 degrees Fahrenheit, yet still function normally with schools, markets, and transportation. The adaptations to this climate are impressive. Houses are built on stilts so as not to melt the permafrost, that layer of permanently frozen soil. Cars need to stay running all the time during winter, because if they are turned off, they can simply freeze and not start again. And clothing is not a luxury. Fur coats, lined boots, and layers upon layers are essential for leaving the house. The cold has also left its mark on Russian history. Wars were won with its help. Just remember Napoleon's troops, and later the Nazis, who could not withstand the Russian winter. At the same time, this extreme climate reinforced the image of a resilient people accustomed to enduring conditions that seem impossible. Number 1. Canada. Canada is a country that, for many people, already has the image of coldness attached to its name. And no wonder, with an annual average of almost -3 degrees, it tops the list of the coldest countries on the planet. But of course, as in any giant country, the climate varies greatly. On the Pacific coast, in cities like Vancouver, winters are even mild. In the north, in Yukon, Nunavut, and the Northwest Territories, the cold is on another level. The lowest temperature ever recorded in Canada was -63 degrees in Snag, Yukon, in 1947. It is so cold that it freezes the air before you even breathe. In these regions, winter can last 8 months, with long periods of darkness in the polar winter, when the sun simply does not appear for weeks. To survive, Canadians have developed a very peculiar relationship with the cold. Houses are super insulated, central heating is indispensable, and even public transportation adapts. In some cities, there are tunnels and entire underground passages so that people can get around without facing the snow. And snow, of course, has become part of the culture. Ice hockey is practically a national religion, and winter sports drive the economy and tourism. Ultimately, Canada not only lives with the cold, it makes the cold a source of pride. Bonus: Greenland and Antarctica. And if you've made it this far, we've got something extra for you. Because, even though they are not countries, there are 2 places that could not be left out of this conversation when it comes to cold weather: Greenland and Antarctica. Greenland, despite being a territory of Denmark, as we mentioned at the beginning of the video, is practically a continent of ice. The average annual temperature there is around -10 degrees, but in some inland areas, the cold is even more intense, easily reaching -30. Winter is so severe that in certain locations the sun disappears for weeks. Life in coastal cities depends heavily on fishing and hunting, and isolation is a reality. There are no roads connecting communities, and transportation is by boat, plane, or even dog sled. For the approximately 56,000 inhabitants, living with ice is part of their daily routine. But if Greenland is impressive, Antarctica is in a league of its own. There, the annual average temperature is an incredible -86 degrees Fahrenheit. It is the coldest, driest, and windiest place on the planet. The lowest temperature ever recorded on Earth was there, -89 degrees, at the Russian Vostok station in 1983. The sun also follows a radical cycle. During the summer, it does not set for months, while in winter, almost total darkness reigns. No one actually lives in Antarctica. What exists are research stations scattered across several countries, where scientists brave the extreme cold to study everything from climate to wildlife. Penguins, seals, and whales share space with these temporary humans in one of the most inhospitable environments ever known. So, did you feel a chill down your spine just hearing these numbers? From Canada to Antarctica, the planet shows that living in extreme temperatures is not only about endurance but also adaptation and even cultural pride. Now we want to know from you, which of these places would you have the courage to face? Do you see yourself living in any country on this list, or would you run away to the warmth of the tropics? Tell us in the comments. We love reading your stories. And don't forget, leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the bell so you don't miss the next videos. This really helps Bello Mundo continue to bring you interesting facts from all corners of the planet. See you next time.